trainer in drug-related first aid in the Netherlands as well. It's an accredited training, and I made a translation of that training. Well, partial translation. It's based on that training, and that I will get that to you today. So I've been working for DanceWize since June. So for people that don't know DanceWize is one of the outreach programs of Harm Reduction Victoria. Harm Reduction Victoria is an organization based in Melbourne, and we're for people who use drugs by people who use drugs. And DanceWize has a chill out space at the event where people can come in. We're a bit of an extension of the medical provider, so people who don't need like physical support can still chill out in your space to have some monitoring for like GHB blowouts, or yeah, people who are having a bit of a challenging experience, as we call it, on psychedelics. So we have some goals for tonight, for today. So the first goal is that you'll be able to describe the influence of set, drug and setting on a person's well-being and how those factors contribute to a health disturbance. The second is that you'll be able to name the 3 main types of drugs and their general effects. Third goal is that you'll be able to apply the sheet that I've just handed out, the Health Disturbance Decision Flowchart. This is a tool that we can use in cases when we're out on the field and you come across a situation and see how you can manage that situation. So the first thing I want to talk about is set, drug and setting. So it's actually a model described by Norman Zimberg, who was an American psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. And he wrote this book called Set, Drug and Setting, and it describes the 3 key factors that influence to the psychedelic experience, where set stands for mindset, setting stands for the environment where it's used, and the drug is the drug taken. But these days we kind of extended that model, where set stands for all factors within a person, setting, all factors influencing a person, external factors influencing a person, and the drug is the drug taken. So more in detail is set stands for like the physiology of a person, general health of a person, person's general state of being. Is a person well hydrated, well fed? What's the cultural background of a person? What's the history, nurture, nature? What's the experience with this substance? What's the motivation of use? What's the person's knowledge? So these are just examples. You can imagine more of these examples. So all factors within a person. And the next is the setting. So that will be all external factors. So the location. How much stimuli are in that location? Is there like loud music? What kind of music? Is it hot? Is it cold? Temperature? Is it humid? How much control do you have over your environment and stimuli? Can you control the music? Can you control the volume? Can you control the temperature? What social group are you with? What's your affinity with the location, and is there law enforcement? So you can imagine when someone takes an illicit drug and there's a presence of law enforcement, that influences the experience of the user. And the last is the drug. So that's the chosen substance, if there's polyuse, or what dose, and also the quality. In Australia you don't have quality control. In the Netherlands we have a nice drug test service and you know exactly what's in your drug. You don't have that. So that means that if I take a pill, which I assume is ecstasy and therefore should contain MDMA, might not actually contain MDMA at all. You don't know that. Is the legal drug or an illicit drug and how is it used? Is it smoked? Is it swallowed?
What do you mean by polyuse? Like whether or not they've used it before, or?
No, polyuse
or
is
more
a combination of multiple drugs at once. These are the 3 key factors that influence a person's well-being, and those are also the 3 key factors that can contribute to an occurring health disturbance. Generally, we have 3 main types of drugs, and those are the stimulants, depressants, and the hallucinogens. Stimulants are indeed drugs that have this is classified on the effects on the central nervous system. Yeah, so stimulants are drugs that have a stimulating effect on the central nervous system, increasing the signal transfer within the brain and from the brain to the body, and therefore making the body and mind more active. So effects of that are your heart rate increases, your blood pressure increases, your temperature increases, your veins dilate. Yes. Other effects of stimulants are like you get more sensitive to stimuli, so you're more open to stimuli, and your muscles tense up, so increased muscle tension. And the opposite of that are the depressants. The depressants have a depressant effect on the central nervous system. Doesn't mean that they make you depressed, but they decrease the signal transfer within the brain and from the brain to the body, therefore making the body and mind more relaxed and less active. So effects are quite opposite. Your muscles relax, your veins dilate. Your breathing becomes more shallow, or your breathing rate decreases. Your heart rate may decrease as well. You become less sensitive to stimuli. And the last one are the hallucinogens, and they have an altering effect on the central nervous system, and therefore changing your perception of reality. So physical effects are actually quite neutral on hallucinogens, but they often rely on the experience of the user. So someone who's taken LSD might still have an increased heart rate, but that could be due to stress of the experience itself. Some drugs can be classified as multiple types, so that's why it's a triangle. Drugs are highly complex, yeah, so this is a simplified model, but this is a good point to work from. So we've got ice, speed, cocaine, caffeine, tobacco, nicotine, all stimulating substances. MDMA and ecstasy. MDMA is the active component of ecstasy. You intend to buy MDMA when you buy ecstasy. If it contains something else, is not really what people are looking for. So 2CB family, you've got all other family members of the 2C family. They're indeed more hallucinogen, but they also have some stimulating properties. LSD, mushrooms, mescaline are definitely hallucinogens. Ketamine and nitrous are actually quite related. They're depressants and hallucinogens. Some might actually argue that ketamine might actually also be slightly stimulating, because it's one of the only narcotics that doesn't actually suppress the breathing rate and the heart rate. It might actually increase it. And then you've got your depressants, heroin and other opiates, benzodiazepines, alcohol, GHB, they're all definitely depressants. And cannabis, indeed, if you classify it on how it works in the brain, is a bit of all. So let's take a look at the flowchart. It reads from top till bottom. And the top section is the early detection and prevention part. So the goal is to prevent, in the first instance, to prevent a health disturbance from occurring. So you'll see the 3 key factors described again: set, setting, and drug. And it provides some tools on how we try to prevent, how you can manage these things when to prevent a health disturbance. So for instance, on the set, it gives some tools on when do you engage on a person. Do you see someone wandering around looking confused or sitting alone on the ground? Do you have a feeling in your a gut feeling of might someone be alright? So that encourages you to engage on these people. And on the setting, it gives tools on monitoring what's around. So if it's a really hot day and people are dressing up in plastic outfits, it might be a good idea to sprinkle water over the dance floor to make sure that people don't overheat. Some drugs actually suppress the feeling of how the senses of feeling how hot you actually are. So people are not really responding to the signals that their body actually gives. Yeah, so the same counts for when it's a cold night. Make sure people are warm. Might want to do some roving, that people are not getting hypothermic. And same as unlit staircases, sharp objects sticking out of the ground. And the drug itself we can influence by promoting education. We have DanceWize space, we have resources, we have free condoms. We can educate people even on doses if they want to. Yeah, and the knowledge itself will decrease the chance of a health disturbance from happening. So, but even though we might do our best, often health disturbances still occur. So that's when you go to the second part. And that distinguishes acute health disturbances. Those are health disturbances that need direct medical attention, to light health disturbances. They can vary in degrees, in severity. So some might be, don't need medical attention, might be managed by yourself, and some do. So let's first take a look at the light health disturbances. So light health disturbances, they occur with any type of drug. So the first one is headache. Headache is one of the most common heard complaints at events. It's often also a symptom of dehydration. Yeah, especially on multiple day events when it's hot and people drink alcohol. People might get dehydrated over a period of time. Usually it takes like 72 hours. Could go faster when a person drinks a lot of alcohol, vomits, or when it's like really hot and people sweat a lot. Malaise. Malaise is a general feeling of discomfort, illness, or not feeling well, without a clear cause. Yeah, so it's usually described as multiple vague factors that you cannot really pinpoint why the person is not feeling well.
Yeah.
That's right. So the next one is nausea and vomiting. Could have various reasons. Person can just be sick from the flu or whatever. Could also be that they've taken something that reacts with their digestive tract, so that makes their stomach upset, wants to get rid of it. Other thing is some drugs actually work in parts of the brain that are related to your digestive tract and therefore creating nausea. Other drugs work the other way around, such as cannabis, they make you hungry. So next one is dizziness. People have different meanings with this word, but with dizziness we always refer to a change in the vestibular system, which is an organ behind the ear, or a change in the brain that causes someone to find it hard to find their balance, vertigo, yeah. But it's a subjective feeling as well. And drowsiness. Drowsiness is a lowered state of consciousness, but without being unconscious. Yeah, so that means that someone might not react to light stimuli, such as speaking or gentle shaking, but they might still react to harder stimuli, louder stimuli, such as speaking really loud. Could be like harder shaking. Could even be applying pain. Yeah, if you find someone who doesn't respond to light stimuli, start off light and work your way up till you can apply pain. How do you do that? You take a finger and you press the sternum. Yeah, so that's the bone between the ribs. You can just press it with a finger, see if you get a reaction. If that doesn't work, you can rub your knuckle over the sternum. That hurts quite a fair bit. See if you can get people to be awake. We'll get back to that later, why that is important.
Or a finger over the nail bed.
Yeah, that's another option, indeed.
And I think,
use a pen, press their finger bed.
and I personally believe when a male is going to do it, is better off doing pen over the nail bed onto a female than a sternum rub, because otherwise onlookers wonder what the hell you're doing.
Yeah, I can imagine, but yeah, in my experience, a finger is sometimes doesn't give a response, where this does give a response. But I can see what you mean, like might give the wrong intentions, but I think when you're in that situation, it's often quite obvious what you're actually doing.
We've started doing like firm grips on this part of the
Yeah.
shoulder, where you know when you get massages and it like hurts a lot here. Like
Yeah.
doing like
So-
pinching there.
Yeah, pinching here is
If
another
you're
other way.
uncomfortable sternum rubbing someone, that's like an option.
Yeah,
Or in between the thumb and forefinger.
perfect, thank you. Yeah, so you try to get, so the medical team actually also wants you to do that, yeah? Try to get a reaction. Next one is temperature deviation, which is not hypothermia or hyperthermia yet, but it is someone feeling cold or hot. I think the temperature and the whole climate changes pretty fast here in Melbourne and around Melbourne. Yeah, so especially when people are on substances, they might not actually feel how hot they are. So sometimes if someone looks really hot and they're walking around in synthetic outfits when it's like 38, 40 degrees outside, you can also walk up to someone and ask, may I feel your neck? See if, conclude for them if they need some cooling down. Anxiety. People often have expectations towards the experience they're going to have on a drug. If that experience is then different from that expectation, people can become anxious. Effects can be stronger or different. Some unprocessed emotions or a situation occurs that they weren't aware of up front can come up. And the last one is a challenging experience. Challenging experience actually describes all other factors that don't really need medical support straight away, but does a person to need some care. So examples are like an event is actually quite hectic, you know, like there's so many things going on, social groups, loud music, etc. So it might be that the whole experience becomes difficult to cope with. Also on the influence of a drug. So an example is a strong dissociation on ketamine. Could also be someone has drunk some alcohol and becomes emotional about their relationship that they broke off a month before. Could be that they've taken LSD and what they're experiencing can be quite intense. And yeah, can make a person anxious when they're walking the side, so they might need some support. So those are all challenging experiences. So if we have a light health disturbance, and once again it might vary in severity, so if it's severe then please still refer to medical or to DanceWize. So these are tools that you can apply. This is once again on your flow chart on the bottom. So if we have a light health disturbance, we go to general harm reduction measures. So these are tools. Yeah? It doesn't mean that you have to apply them all or all at once. These are just tools you can apply in that situation. So the first thing, and that is something that counts at any time, is safety first. You won't be able to help anyone if your own safety is compromised. With that, I also mean be aware of your own boundaries. People who are intoxicated might cross certain boundaries because they have a loss of decorum. Be aware what your personal boundaries are, and make people aware. You don't have to accept everything because a person is intoxicated. We don't want you to come back later in the event and have experienced something as traumatizing because your boundaries have been crossed. Also be aware of your limitations. Safety first also means that keep the person you're taking care of safe. Good care is in line with the needs of the situation. If you're not able to accommodate those needs, then the best care that you can provide is to call in for help. We've got medical teams, we've got DanceWize, you've got your colleagues, your rover colleagues. So we've got all these people, these teams to support you. You're not on your own. And I'm happy that you already mentioned, you always work in doubles. So the next is an appropriate attitude. A calm,
Empathy.
open attitude. If you're stressing out, you might inflict the stress on the people, the person you're taking care of. So try to remain calm. Open, indeed. Not judgmental was already mentioned. Very good. It's very important. Everyone has judgment. It's human nature to have judgment, but don't show that to people, yeah, because you'll lose contact. And also support, but don't overtake. And with that, I mean, see what the person needs. Find out what the person needs. Don't jump to a conclusion what the person needs, and give options. Give options. What are the options that the person has, and make a shared decision. Yeah, don't be like, oh, you have this, you need this, we're gonna do this. Find out what's really going on, what that person needs. In most cases, the person itself knows what might help him or her or they, them. So be aware of that. Next one is the setting. The setting itself sometimes is a cause of the health disturbance, as we already mentioned. So someone who's not feeling well and is in the middle of the dance floor with all these stimuli going on might not be the best setting for that person to be. So you can change the setting. Bring people to a DanceWize space, bring people to the helper hut, stay with them. And with setting I also mean you often don't just deal with the person that needs help. A person that needs help often attracts attention from bystanders, all with good intentions. They'll want to help that person, but it's also important that you decrease stimuli for that person. So sometimes when you come and you deal with friends and such, sometimes you can just make people aware that you're very thankful that they wanted to help, but that the best thing they can do at this point is to stand back, keep their distance, and that you'll be providing care with your team member. And also take care of their friends. Some friends might be very worried, so you work in doubles, one engages on the person, the other person engages on the surroundings. Next one is keep the person awake. If someone's unconscious, you don't really know the severity of the situation, and you said their breathing may stop. Yeah, that's also because being unconscious might also relax the muscles that usually protect your airway. So that means that your tongue can slip to the back of your throat, therefore blocking the airway. Someone might vomit, not be aware of that, can come back into the lungs. Those are all risks when a person is unconscious. And by keeping a person awake, you decrease those risks. Yeah, so that's why it's important. Next one is the water, liquid and salt advice. So at events it's hot, people use substances, and you can either drink not enough, causing dehydration, but you can also drink too much, causing water intoxication. Especially MDMA is renowned to increase the risk of water intoxication. And the salt advice is because salt is an electrolyte. You need salts to maintain a healthy body fluid balance. So just drinking is not enough. You actually need salts to process those fluids in the body. So what happens is, for instance, with MDMA, a person has a dry mouth, therefore tends to drink. Person loses appetite because of MDMA, therefore doesn't eat, doesn't consume electrolytes for a certain period of time. And it also increases your anti-diuretic hormone, which causes people to pee less. So those are three components that all influence the risk of getting water intoxication. So we have a standard advice that we want to promote. And that advice is drink 1 standard drink per hour maximum when you're chilling out. So that is 250 milliliters. And that's non-alcoholic fluid, because alcohol actually makes you pee more than that you consume. If it's hot and you're active, you're dancing, up to 2 standard drinks. So that is up to a half a liter, maximum an hour. Yeah? And for the salt advice, like there's always these debates going on, so people saying, oh, you can drink coconut drink, you can drink sports drinks, but they won't save you because they don't contain enough electrolytes. So the best advice is always to eat something every few hours. If eating is difficult, promote soup. Yeah?
What about hydrolyte?
Hydrolyte, yeah, that's like sports drinks. Hydrolytes, like those sports drinks, they often contain between, like you need a margin of 60 millimoles per liter, and they don't reach that. They go up to 40. Even the sports drinks, they promote like replenish your electrolytes. So what will happen is it might extend the period of time, but there's even conflicting evidence on that. And eventually you'll still risk water intoxication.
Wow.
Yes.
What about salt sachets?
Yeah, ORS, that's good because that contains 90. You need at least 60. Yeah. So that salt, like ORS, is good. You can drink beetroot juice, is good. Tomato juice is good. Soup is good. Food is good. Self-care. So people's daily rhythms, they get kind of confused often at events because people party through the night, they consume drugs that they might not use throughout the week. It's a multi-day event, daytime it's hot, might not be able to sleep in a tent. So people sometimes even push themselves to the limit. So it's important to promote self-care. And with self-care, we mean try to eat 3 regular meals a day. Make sure that people sleep. Often mental crisis and psychotic symptoms are caused because of a lack of sleep. Any human will start hallucinating at some point when they don't sleep. Yeah, so that's why that's important. And also just self-care, brush your teeth and such. It's good to take care of yourself. When people feel good, feel fit, feel well rested, the chance of health disturbance is a lot lower. Cooling and heating as a reaction to the temperature deviation. When someone is hot, help them cool off, sprinkle some water over them, take some clothes off, promote them to chill out. It's advised to chill out every half hour when it's hot. Especially when people take stimulants, they feel like, I have so much energy, I just want to dance. But they might actually not feel that they're overheating on the dance floor. So it's good to promote cooling down every now and then. And trip sitting, I'm not going to go into that. We apply trip sit principles at the DanceWize tent. If you're interested, there's some more information described in the background information document you'll be sent, so you can read about that if you like. So predicting effects, if you're really interested in that, how can you predict if someone uses multiple drugs and such, will also all be described in the document. so please read the document. It's good for repetition as well when you're on site. So next thing I want to do is look into the acute health disturbances. So those are acute health disturbances that need direct medical attention. And what we'll be doing is applying the DRS ABCD protocol. I was taught that this is a protocol that's quite common here in Australia. Does anyone not know the protocol as how it's being taught? Everyone does? Okay, that's perfect.
The only thing, like I said, is
exactly.
the D is wrong. It's meant to be defibrillation.
Well, it's not wrong. I actually changed it. So defibrillator is standard, but we have our medical provider on site. Yeah, so they can come up with the defibrillator if it's necessary. So we apply the protocol that's more common in healthcare, applied by healthcare professionals, where the D stands for disability, which looks at the state of consciousness. Yeah? And what I want you to do is to apply the recovery position. What I think is most important is that you apply the DRS, so you get medics on site as soon as possible. And then if you are familiar with the ABC, you can apply the ABC, but what we'll be teaching you now is to apply the recovery position. So, does anyone want to volunteer for me that I can show how to apply the recovery position?
And
You guys.
Yeah? Awesome. We'll be practicing this on each other straight after, by the way. So
Oh,
be
good.
prepared. So what the ABCD stands for is treat what kills first. So without an airway, free airway, person cannot breathe. Without a breathing, circulation will stop, person dies. D stands for the state of consciousness. So someone might be unconscious. And the DRS, danger, as we already spoke about, safety first. Respond, check for response. Someone might still respond to pain, but sometimes the response doesn't match. You really don't get the response that you want because someone might be psychotic or very confused or very agitated. And then send for help. One person stays in contact with the person, your body sends help. So that means they do the radioing and they make sure the area stays clear and safe and that they're visible for the medical provider to attend. Okay, so I see a person lay on the ground and I'm going to attend this person. She's completely unconscious, so she won't respond. Hello, can you open your eyes? What's your name? Don't get a response. So next step is harder shaking, no response. I can apply the sternum rub, no response. So that means this person is unconscious. So what I do? Sorry?
give it a spin.
Won't do that. So next thing is, we have done the D, the R, the send for help. Okay, so we have an unconscious person. Please call medical, get medical on site. And I'm going to apply the recovery position. So if I know the ABC, apply it. And otherwise we go to the recovery position. I'm going to do it 2 times. First time I'm going to roll her away from me so you can see it better. Next time I'm going to roll her towards me because that's how it's actually done. So first step is I take this arm, put it in a 90-degree angle next to her. Just relax. So next step is take this arm, put it on her cheek. Yeah? I lift this leg and I keep this hand in place. Can you all see this? Yeah? Okay. And then I use this leg as levitation to roll her on her side. And I can move the leg a bit forward so she doesn't roll back. And I slightly tilt the head back so the airway is free. Yeah? Thank you. Can you roll back on your right, please?
Yes.
So one more time. Now I'm going to do it towards me. 90-degree angle. Place the hand on her cheek, lift the leg, keep the hand in place, and lift with the other leg. Roll down. This. Tilt the head slightly backwards. And that's how you apply the recovery position. Yeah? So the next thing, I would like you to make couples and practice this on each other. If they're fully unconscious and they're sitting like in a chair or something, then please sit them down. But probably if they're unconscious, their head will be like banging around, and that would still might cause an airway obstruction. We'll now be looking into the acute health disturbances. So these are all the health disturbances you'll be applied the DRS ABCD to. So the first one is an airway obstruction. What types of drugs would this be linked? Would this be most common with? Depressants, and why?
Because they relax the muscles to keep breathing.
Yeah, decreased consciousness, relaxed muscles. So an airway obstruction is identified as an obstruction in the airway path from oxygen-rich air from outside the mouth till deep in the lungs. So there could be a tongue, could be vomit, could be something else that's in the mouth that they choked on. And one other exception to that is linked to stimulants, such as MDMA, which is a locked jaw. And a locked jaw means that the muscles in the jaw become so tense that a person is no longer able to remove their teeth from each other. And that is absolutely also an airway obstruction and should be managed as an acute health disturbance. Yeah? So you apply your DRS ABCD. Obviously, your airway is compromised, and therefore your breathing might stop. Cardiovascular disorders. Definitely most common with stimulants. Specifically, cocaine is really renowned for creating cardiovascular disorders because it really constricts the arteries that go directly to the heart. So therefore, creating a lack of oxygen in the heart itself, able to have a circulation. Might also be with like palpitations and such are also common with any stimulant, but cocaine is definitely also most linked to heart attack and stroke. Might also be methamphetamine, but I don't have any data on that because we don't have that in the Netherlands. You can apply the FAST system. So FAST stands for face, arm, speech and time. Face means that one side of the face, because the muscles relax, so one side of the face really hangs down. Arms means that a person is not able to lift one of their arms. Speech means that a person mumbles nonsense, incoherent speech. Could be also answers that are completely not in line with the question, or someone just makes up a random sentence with random words. And time is just act fast. So apply your DRS ABCD. And a heart attack can be recognized by chest pain, but also back pain, neck pain, pain in the arm, jaw, it kind of extends from the core, nausea and gasping, shortness of breath. So gasping for air is really common as a precursor to an actual heart attack. Any questions on this? So here, your circulation is mostly compromised. So all depressants are definitely most common with unconsciousness because they decrease the sensitivity to stimuli, therefore decreasing consciousness. Being unconscious, you apply your disability, apply recovery position to keep the airway free. and obviously apply your ABC if you know how to. Next one is an epileptic seizure. An epileptic seizure is actually a person being unconscious, but it's characterized by shocking muscle movement, shocking muscle cramps. The person can really tense up, might have various reasons. A person can have used stimulants, a person might be on withdrawal from other drugs, such as depressants. Some depressants, if people stop using it, might cause epileptic activity. Someone might just have epilepsy, can be triggered by flashing lights. And an epileptic insult that lasts for longer than 5 minutes is called a status epilepticus and is lethal in a very short period of time. The body is tense, that the breathing becomes insufficient, so therefore someone might start seeing blue and such. So if it's possible, you can still apply the recovery position. If it's not possible, don't bother.
And get medics there as soon as possible.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
nothing that you can do, but there's
No.
something that they could do and
Yeah.
stuff that the paramedics could do.
Absolutely. Yeah, so once again, apply your DRS ABCD. So get medics on site, first priority, then apply your ABCD. The excited delirium syndrome. It's not very common, but it does happen. In my time here in Australia, I've come across it a couple of times now already. Yeah, I would definitely link it more to stimulants. Yeah, could be is sometimes also linked to LSD, but definitely, yeah, most common with stimulants such as cocaine is very renowned for it, and methamphetamine, absolutely. Because with GHB you would expect, because it's a depressant, you would expect slightly different symptoms, but the person can be still very confused in combination with loss of decorum. Might be more like a delirium rather than an excited delirium. So an excited delirium, I'm just going to give you the exact definition. A changed state of consciousness with decreased cognition and perception with severe psychomotoric agitation. So why is it important to recognize this? Because it's characterized by often aggressive behavior and therefore comes in contact with police, security, but it should definitely be treated as a medical situation because an excited delirium can be lethal. Estimations are 10% of people in an excited delirium die. So another big concern is because there's aggression, and often the first response is restraint, but restraint actually increases the chance of death on an excited delirium. So symptoms are aggressive and violent behavior, constant physical activity, like people can be very restless, no response to verbal stimuli, or don't respond does not follow instructions. Attracted or destructive to glass, shiny objects, attracted to loud sounds and flashing lights. Often people strip down from their clothes as an attempt of self-cooling because they are overheating. Rapid breathing, profuse sweating, keening. Keening are animal-like sounds. Tolerant to pain, excessive strength, and does not get tired. So basically a form of a Hulk that you have to deal with. Not all symptoms have to be present at the same time. Some symptoms don't have to be present at all. But the more symptoms are present, the higher the chance that it is actually an excited delirium. Hypothermia, which is a temperature below 35 degrees Celsius. Most heat in the body is also produced by movement, and the presence, relaxed muscles, decreased movement, dilate veins, causing more heat to be lost. Yeah. So definitely linked to most common with depressants, but can also be linked to stimulants because of excessive sweating. Especially GHB is very common with hypothermia because even though people are cold, they might still excessively sweat.
Marla,
Yes.
in this country at that time of year, it's also sunburn.
Summer?
Sunburn.
Oh, sunburn.
So you put someone with G, someone who's sunburned with G, they just drop.
Okay.
Because their body's already starting to cool down internally from the external sunburn.
Yeah.
And then at GHB, and then it's going to
Okay. Yeah, the sun here is quite intense. Yeah, so once again, apply your DRS. What would you think of when someone is cold? Usually you think of someone complaining about the cold, shivering, but when it gets more severe, that shivering will stop and the consciousness will drop. So someone will stop complaining, can become very pale, and eventually will become unconscious. So the opposite of hypothermia is hyperthermia, which is a body temperature over 40 degrees Celsius. If that goes further up to 42 degrees Celsius, your internal thermostat deregulates, which can cause the body to heat itself even more. Reach to a point of 45 degrees is almost always lethal. Yeah, so most common with stimulants, because people are not aware of how hot they actually are, have more energy, more muscle movement, and it itself also increases body temperature. Because, for instance, MDMA is linked to serotonin, and serotonin is also plays a part in regulation of temperature. So once again, symptoms, what you think of when someone's really hot, people are sweating, red skin, but when their internal fluids are evaporated, sweating might stop, so they can also have a dry skin eventually. Might have a very red flush skin, could also be pale skin. Yeah, so be aware that with hypo and hyperthermia, you have to be aware that it might not always look like what you think, what you would expect.
Confusion.
So, sorry?
Confusion.
Confusion and aggression as well with hyperthermia. So the best thing you can do is just ask if you can touch someone to feel their neck, feel their head, feel if they're hot, if they're cold, call for medic, and they will definitely take it from there. Acute psychosis is a more severe state of challenging experience, and a psychosis is characterized by delusions and hallucinations. So delusions are a disturbance in thinking, person thinking that they're God, have to save people, think that they are being followed. Hallucinations are a disorder in perception, so they might think that people are talking about them, they actually hear their names being called out, they actually see people that might not be there or things that might not be there. Often we speak of a true psychosis when the drugs have worn off and then the symptoms still are present. Also very common with sleep deprivation, as I already mentioned.
Yeah.
So once again, apply your DRS. So with response you might, danger, if someone's really anxious and very stressed, can be a dangerous situation. Someone might act from anxiety and try to protect themselves because that's what they feel like. So in your response you might get paranoia response, person not really engaging what's happening. If you get that gut feeling, something's not right, please call for assistance. Injury or bleeding, most common with depressants because of a decreased coordination, especially ketamine. Highest risk of ketamine use is actually injury. So once again, apply your DRS. I wouldn't expect things to be so severe that you'd have to apply your ABCD unless there is a really severe accident or trauma, but definitely apply your DRS. So get medics on site. Or if it's not severe, you can just walk with them to the medical provider. So these are the names of the people that made the original training in the Netherlands. It is quite an adaptation, so some things are the same, but it's definitely different. And these are really awesome institutes. So I promise to mention them.